Let's turn our attention back to national politics, and turmoil continues at the Labour Party conference because the shadow cabinet member, Andy MacDonald, quit Labour's front bench yesterday. This is in the middle of a national crisis where we're facing shortages, and within Labour there is an internal scathing attack on the opposition leader, Sir Keir Starmer.
Now, Shadow Home Secretary Nick Thomas-Symonds, he's down there and he's joining us now. Nick, good morning. I suppose let's just cut straight to the sort of big point here. Is it becoming possible that the Labour Party is unleadable because actually there's almost a sense of there being two parties? There's the party that Keir Starmer's trying to shape, and there's the party that Jeremy Corbyn and his supporters, who remain fairly voluble, that they want back, even though they got very, very roundly defeated at the last election.
Well, firstly, good morning, Alistair, and it's good to join you. No, I do not think the Labour Party is unleadable. And in fact, we've seen strong leadership from Keir Starmer this week. We had the rule changes that happened over the weekend. Keir was told to back off. We were told those rule changes wouldn't get through. But Keir showed leadership, kept with it, got those changes through. Now what we're seeing is, with Rachel Reeves yesterday, I today will be setting out my plans on neighbourhood policing, saying to people that if there's trouble on your street, Labour will make sure that somebody is there, and Keir will have his speech tomorrow. So far from being unleadable, I think Keir Starmer is showing that leadership now, showing the policies that we will start to put before the electorate, and showing a very firm sense of direction for where Labour is going after its defeat in 2019.
OK, but I don't know if you've noticed, we're in a state of what feels like national crisis. We have queues at petrol forecourts. We have care workers who are explaining that they're leaving vulnerable people on their own, cannot even get out of bed because care workers stuck in the queue. Got teachers saying they're going to have to close schools potentially, go back to online learning. And meanwhile, we don't, with all due respect to you, we don't have Sir Keir Starmer on the programme this morning. And Labour is back to internal faction fighting. What's gone wrong?
Well, I and many other members of the Shadow Cabinet wrote to the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, back in July about the issue that the government is now finding itself in with HGV drivers. And we've just sent a dismissive letter at the start of August from Grant Shapps, saying in his words that he wasn't going to use foreign labour to solve this problem. So far from not being engaged with it, we've absolutely been warning the government about what was likely to happen and what could happen. And we find ourselves in a quite appalling situation now, where the government has failed to train up HGV drivers as it claimed it was going to. We now have this huge gap. We have the problems that you've just described, Susanna, and it seems that we're now in a situation where we have petrol forecourts closed, talk of petrol being rationed, the Prime Minister on the one hand saying don't panic, on the other talking about bringing the army in. It is an absolute shambles from the government, and it is of their own making.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say that one of the issues here, and one of the reasons why perhaps Labour supporters might have voted for Brexit, is because there was a concern that an influx of foreign labour had a dampening effect on wages. And wages is at the heart of one of your rows right now, because we have this resignation by Andy MacDonald, the Shadow Employment Rights Secretary, who says he's resigned from the Shadow Cabinet because Sir Keir Starmer instructed him to go into a meeting and argue against a national minimum wage of £15 an hour. And it's something he could not do. Do you not support a national minimum wage of £15 an hour?
Well, on your first point, let me just say that absolutely the government should be training up HGV drivers, and it is their failure to do so that has led to the shortage that we have. Secondly, on the issue of the minimum wage, we're in favour of a minimum wage of at least £10 an hour. And that, by the way, would have a pay rise now of 12% for many people if it was introduced. We're also fighting for working people in terms of cancelling the universal credit cut. We're arguing against the national insurance rise, which is in effect a tax rise on working people. What we're saying is about that £10 figure, we're committed to at least £10. Well, what we think should happen is look at the state of the economy, whether it's the rate of inflation, the wage rates, and also the wider economic situation before we come to that figure that we will then put before the electorate at the next election and make sure we can deliver it and afford it.
All right. So Andy McDonald said he was told to go into a meeting and argue against a rise to £15 an hour for the minimum wage. So does that mean that Sir Keir Starmer was wrong? Sir Keir Starmer, your leader, back in 2019, when he supported the McDonald's workers in their fight for better pay, because he said they're not asking for the earth, they're asking for the basics, £15 an hour. And that should be the norm in 21st century Britain. So he was wrong back in 2019 to say that that should be the norm.
No, Keir stood in solidarity with workers and he stands in solidarity with working people, and that's why we're putting forward policies to help working people.
But you will not argue for a rise of the minimum wage to £15 an hour, despite the fact he said 2 years ago it should be the norm.
We will see what the position is, the economic position is at the next election for the figure that we will put before the electorate. The responsible thing is to make sure that we have a figure that we can deliver at that election and is also in the context of, as I've said, the wage rates, rate of inflation and economic circumstances at the time. But we're saying a minimum of £10. That, as I say, would be a 12% rise for a lot of people now. And we are also standing up for working people on a range of other things, not least the employment rights paper, which will be debated today, actually, at party conference. And leadership is happy for that to be supported when we're talking about things like employment rights from day one and ending pernicious practices like fire and rehire. So we absolutely stand beside working people. We will look at the economic circumstances for what figure we offer on the minimum wage at the next election in the economic context of the time.
Nick, Ian Murray was on television last night and he suggested that Andy McDonald's resignation was part of something bigger. He used the word sabotage. And I know that John McDonnell has been out saying that unless Keir really makes an impact with his speech tomorrow, that then the hint was that there'll be a move against him. Is there something deeper and bigger going on that is either alarming you or you sense maybe an opportunity to signal real change?
I'm not alarmed, and obviously why Andy has resigned on a particular day is clearly a question that you need to put to him. But far from being alarmed, I am optimistic about what I see at this conference. Yes, absolutely, under a new leadership. I think the rule changes are very, very important. They'll allow members of Parliament, for example, to look outward, not to spend huge amounts of their time on internal issues. That will make a difference. It's a signal to the country that we've listened in 2019 about that catastrophic defeat that we suffered. We want to listen to their concerns. The plans I'll be setting out today on neighbourhood policing, on police hubs in communities, neighbourhood prevention teams, actually recruiting more special constables, speak to what I've heard from people up and down the country about 2 million incidents of antisocial behaviour over the past year. So what we are saying to the public is we are listening, we've listened, now we want to put forward those policies that speak to people's everyday concerns.
Will you listen to Hilary Benn, who yesterday suggested that the Labour leadership needs to be far more proactive about calling out the failures of Brexit, about closing the holes that the Brexit deal has delivered, and about linking some of the catastrophes that we're seeing now to Brexit? And will Labour get over this fear that it seems to have of even recognising that there may be problems in the Brexit deal?
Well, no, we have recognised there are problems in the Brexit deal. We've always said it is a floor, not a ceiling, and we are seeing particular issues. Just to take issues around, for example, we're seeing about the HGV drivers at the moment. I've previously raised on many occasions my real concerns about where we are going with social care and the vacancies that exist in social care, or something like the seasonal agricultural workers scheme. So we haven't been shy about calling out the holes in the Brexit deal at all, and we will continue to do that and hold this government to account for its utter incompetence in terms of how it's handling that.
All right, Nick Thomas-Symonds, thanks very much indeed for joining us this morning.